If you had a microscope and could look at a piece of a leaf, you would see thousands of tiny openings which branch out until the leaf has all of the materials it needs. What happens now?
Okay, welcome to exercise number 5. This is going to be awesome, literally, okay? Because your homework is to animate the word awesome, just like the way that I animated the word sweet. Basically, you have two choices here. You can either break it all down into pieces in Illustrator if you're a real Illustrator pro. Otherwise, do it the way that I did it in After Effects using trim paths and alpha mats and masks, basically, all right? And here we are in Illustrator. I just wanted to show that here's the word awesome, and I laid this out in the same typeface that I did for the lecture video, rather, which is Lavendaria, which is one of those awesome ones from the Lost Type Co-op, okay? I also picked out, let's see, this one, which I thought would be kind of a nice, very delicate script font for somebody to try to animate. I just want you to have options here, basically, so you can choose whichever one of these you want. I thought this one was really beautiful and very elegant, and then I also did this one, which is actually something I wrote by hand in Photoshop for you guys, which has a little bit more of like a scripty kind of punk rock kind of vibe to it. So you have a bunch of cool options here, I hope. So pick the one that suits you best, and then take that and move that into After Effects. In After Effects, I want to go over a couple little tips that I think could be really fun and helpful for this. Okay, so I brought in the one that I did for the lecture, Sweet here, and I wanted to show you this kind of interesting, fun thing that I like to do sometimes. So now that we have this fully animated here, you could think of this now as just one layer, right? If I turned off my background here, so that this was on a transparency, and then I took Sweet, and I pulled it, and I put it into this little icon here to make another comp out of it, and now I've essentially collapsed this down to this one layer, right? And what I could do now is take this, I could make a new background. I'm going to hit Command Y and make a new solid, and I'll just drop it down to the background. What I could do, of course, with this is I could, for example, put an effect on this to color correct it. Like, for example, generate fill, okay? Which is kind of the simplest way to stick a color correct effect on something, I think. And it gives you this kind of eyedropper and this color, you know, animator panel here that you can click on and choose a different color. So, for example, like I could pick whip to, eyedrop to my background and then choose like a lighter value of this color or something, right? So I could kind of do it like that. And that's really easy to do. But one other thing I kind of want to show you is just say I duplicate this layer, okay? So I Command D and I duplicate it. And now I've got one on top and one on bottom. And if I take the one that's on top, right, and I give it a new color, just say a slightly lighter version of this same color, right? And then I take this and I move it down a couple of frames, just by hand, or actually there's a great shortcut for that. If you select a layer and you hit Option and Page Down and Page Up, Page Down and Option will move your comp one frame at a time back toward the end of comp, and Option Page Up will move your layer, whatever selected, one frame at a time toward the beginning of the comp, right? So here I'm going to hit Option and Page Down, and I'm going to walk this back 2 or 3 frames, okay? And you can kind of see right away what that's doing, so check this out. Right? Sort of like one shape is now following, sort of one layer is kind of following the other. And we could do that a number of times. So I could duplicate this, walk this back, Option Page Down a couple, and then set this at like a different color, something, you know, that's maybe a little bit brighter. And then it could have like this kind of a thing, right? And you could just keep doing that, right? So if you ultimately want this to be like white or whatever, or like a very light, like lilac color or something like this, you can set that on the last one, and then you'll have this kind of like repeating color bars that kind of like pull it all on in the first place. And I think that's really cool, and I've definitely done that a few times. And that's kind of an easy way to add that effect onto there. It doesn't take a lot just to duplicate those layers and color them, and then, you know, line them up like that, right? And it looks kind of cool. So that's one thing I want you to try to do. And if you have more time, like some of you, maybe this exercise will be hella difficult and it'll just take you 10 hours or something, and then you'll be like, great, I'm done with this, I never want to look at this again. But if you find this is really, you know, not that hard and you have some extra time, what I'm going to recommend that you start thinking about is making an animated background layer, right? So for example, if I, you know, go and make a new comp and I call this my background, right? I could take this now and pull this into my you know, this Sweet PC2, this is the sort of combo one that I just made. So I could take my background and move it into the combo. Right now it's blank, so it doesn't really matter. And here it is, and I could give it a different color or whatever. And then I could take this and kind of use this to replace this eventually, you know, kind of make that solid, you know, Command Y, put that solid here in the background layer. And then I could always, you know, turn it off in the combo layer there now. And what I was thinking is that it could be really fun to just put some simple kind of like shapes moving around back here. So for example, if I choose my circle tool, I can kind of use this eyedropper to find, like, you know, colors in this range kind of generally, and then take this and just make some big, I'm just going to make some big circles and some small circles, and you know, each one maybe with a slightly different color palette, you know, or color based on this palette a little bit. And you can kind of like walk around in here and do some stuff, and just give them all a bunch of different kind of colors there. And what I might do is, we haven't talked a lot about these blending modes, but you could take all these and make them like different blend modes, like overlay, or you can make some of them like, you know, soft light or whatever, and some of them like add, and you know, you could just change this around a bunch. And you could also like take these and put like a slight animation on here, I think, something like a rotation. I left these so that the anchor point's all in the center. So if I hit Option R, I can make my first rotation keyframe there. And then I could go to, like, I don't know, this whole thing's probably only like 5 seconds long. This composition I'm in right now is really long. So I could go to, like, I don't know, 7 seconds, and that's plenty. And then what I could do is I could like dial up these values and just make them like a little bit different for each one. Some of them negative, some of them positive, some of them can rotate just a little, and some of them can rotate like a heck of a bunch, right? So that, you know, you could kind of have some situation like this or whatever. And then what you could do pretty easily is kind of take these and like duplicate these, move these up to the top, press R, and then select like the, just say the rotation keyframes here, and then, you know, change these values a bunch. You could do that a number of times, you know, so just so you get this kind of like different kinds of animation going on here, right? And then you could take that, and that might be a little bit too much, but you could take that, you know, and look at that now as a background. You could turn the background solid back on. You know, here's my background, and I could like lower the opacity of this now and just like drop that much more into the background so that it's kind of just like happening just a little bit there. I think that's too much movement for sure going on in the background there. But you could do something like that, you know. You could certainly take all these keyframes pretty easily and just shove these back and make that slower if you wanted. Yeah, and maybe that's better. And then what you could do is you could still put like a whole bunch of effects and stuff on here. Like you could blur this out in the background, or you could add a color correct effect onto it, or you could, you know, I mean, there's a whole lot of things you could do to like add some fanciness to this. You could definitely add some like some grain in here, you know, if you wanted, though that's going to actually like really slow down your render a whole bunch, but you could do it, or, you know, blurs, which will also slow down your render. Any kind of color correction I think would be really great in here, because you could then like kind of colorize this and like, you know, make this whatever you wanted. That might be like weirdly ugly, I don't know, but I don't know. Yeah, so, you know, I think if you have the chance, definitely after you're done animating the word awesome, if you want to do more, try playing around with like a little animated background here. And you could just keep this really simple, just like geometric shapes, and, you know, should be like kind of slow and not huge movement so that it's not too distracting from the main animation, all right? Mostly I just want you to have fun with this and learn a bunch, because I think this is a really great way to learn trim paths and alpha mats, and definitely more about masking, all of which are really important. And once you master this, I think you've moved just beyond like basic After Effects, and you've started to, you know, really move into some advanced stuff here. So thank you so much for keeping on going with this, and I will see you in the next video, and good luck.
If you had a microscope and could look at a piece of a leaf, you would see thousands of tiny openings which branch out until the leaf has all of the materials it needs. What happens now?